Hello, George, and hello, Max. Welcome to Your Game is Garbage. George, I have to introduce you to my brother. He's also a game designer, and I have invited him to the show because I'm tired of talking about Dungeon Fumbler. So let's peek into the designer diary of another designer, a guest designer for the first time. Welcome, Max.
Hi, I'm honored to be on your podcast.
Welcome, Max. Finally, I get to meet the infamous brother I've heard so much about.
Infamous, oh my god.
Yes, he won't stop talking about you. So before we begin, I have a question that I'm sure everyone's dying to know. Who is the younger brother and the wiser brother?
Ooh, I don't know if I'm wiser.
But you are younger.
I guess we'll find out.
I'm how should I introduce myself? I also like designing, just like Jerome. I think we both got into board games at the same time. Sort of. I think it all started when I bought Eclipse, the board game.
You dragged me into it, I think.
Yeah.
I came from Scrabble, and you brought home Eclipse.
The natural transition everyone goes through.
Yeah, but I went from Scrabble to Eclipse also. Yeah. So I just had a friend and I played City of Horror, and then I got rolled into Board Game Geek, and I saw the game that was on the first place on the hot list, and it was Eclipse. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna buy Eclipse.
So that was 2012, I think.
Yeah.
And then what I first remember of you as a board game designer is you made a mod for Eclipse about with the Stargate team.
Yeah.
Made out
That's
of pizza boxes, and it was a fun mod. Not that it worked, just wildly unbalanced, but
yeah,
it's thematically it worked for one.
Yeah, it worked sort of. And then I started designing some Rome-like game. I really liked Caesar 3, the video game, city building game. So I thought, okay, let's make a game out of that, but it failed. I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't really know how to play test. Didn't know how to mechanically design a game from scratch.
And then we both did a lot of research. Well, I started designing Fujikuro and was plowing through a huge amount of YouTube videos about board game design, and that's how my brother and we were bouncing ideas off each other all the time and sharing videos and sharing podcasts, and we still do. Every time we find something interesting, we share it with each other, and every time we have an idea, how fresh it is. Like, you have an idea and immediately we text like, "Oh, I think this will work."
Well, it's really cool to sit here and hear you guys having that support system as you're discovering this new world of game design in general. Like, that must be really good, not only to have, and someone to hear your ideas, like an ear to run things by, but also to almost push each other. Like, did you find yourselves ever, pushing each other to keep going and to keep trying new things? And
I think it cut both ways, I think, because we're very critical about each other's ideas. We don't really match.
No.
I don't really like his ideas, and he doesn't really like my ideas.
We don't have the
so we don't push each other. We push each other to quits mostly.
But that must be also a good thing in a way, because that way you do have someone who will be honest and, really critical about your work or your design or your process or anything. Mind you, we are talking about two brothers, and you guys are being quite civil here. I can only imagine behind the scenes sometimes what things were like, but still, I think that is quite an advantage to have, and that could, that goes beyond just having a support structure, whether it's at home or within the family. But I've noticed a lot of designers excel when they have that support system even within a group of designers, or whether it's like their local game shop where they meet and they go and they run their games. And obviously during the prototyping phase, that's really important. But it's nice to hear, in my mind, a unique story. I've never seen that before. Maybe there is some famous designers that are related, now that I think about it, but it's really cool to see this.
Yeah, I think there are some famous designers. I think the designers of Exit, the
Yes.
escape room in a box.
You have
Yes.
couples
husband
as
and wife,
well.
I think.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
So that's
Cole
a-
Worley and his brother made the Pax Pamir.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, and they
Well,
started.
there you go. I guess there-
yeah. But
There's quite a few.
and I've listened to a podcast about Cole Worley, and he says the same thing. Like his brother is his harshest critic, and he told when they go to family gatherings, they start talking about games, and we have to stop ourselves too from being at the Christmas dinner and sharing ideas and talking about the latest designs, also in the public domain. But I invited you, Max, because you are working on a game again,
Yes.
and we have a different approach on game design as well. You like to make more abstract, small games, as I've
My
seen in
philosophy is, or my goal in board game design is, I want to make a simple game that's not. It doesn't have to be original, or too original. I don't want to
reinvent the wheel.
invent the wheel. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to make a game that works, that's fun, and that I designed and that has some original mechanical ideas, but not, it's completely new. And yeah, I like the more abstract filler type of game. That's what I like to design because it's manageable.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if I could design a big game. That's not my goal. Maybe in the future I might be able to. I don't know if I want to. I enjoy small filler games, so I want to design a small filler game.
But you could argue that small games and small abstract games, because they are so simple, you cannot hide any mistakes. It has to work on every front. And I was thinking about it as well, because it's a small abstract. Even the artwork has to be on point, because even if in the artwork you make a small mistake, or it doesn't pop, or it doesn't match the imaginary theme, it can also break because of that. And I think Azul is the best example of that, because, and you, George, know this as well, the graphic design and the artwork, if everything is perfectly matched together, it works on a subliminal level as well. But if Azul was a little bit different, or I had a crappy box art, or it wouldn't have worked, I think, or it would have worked less, because there's a lot of word of mouth as well.
It wouldn't have been popularized as much as it is now, because of the tactility, the graphic design,
and
really
the tiles too.
Yeah. It's a beautiful game, and
I think it was a perfect storm
to make it more commercially successful. If it had a crappy design, maybe it wouldn't have been so successful. I think
the other thing that I see as important to games that are maybe quote unquote simpler, but it's accessibility for one. Like obviously you look at the target audience every time, I think, with anything that you do. And for games like Azul or anything filler, two things to come in mind. Like obviously, like you said, it has to be clear, concise, and it has to make sense and be accessible to users who are looking for something simple and short and filler and whatever that might be. But also, I think the hardest part to design a small game, perhaps without even reinventing the wheel that much, is to make sure that it's fun. Because I've played a lot of filler games where I've tossed after I played it once and I'll never play again.
Yeah.
It's just not fun, and it just doesn't add to anything experience-wise, or you can see around the table and people are like, okay, what's next? So I think it's you almost have a harder job to do in something like that. But
that's true.
What kind of stuff are you working on these days?
So I'm working on a tile placement game, so it's not a coincidence Jay started talking about Azul. But it's not particularly inspired by Azul. Maybe some elements are. It's more inspired by Patchwork and a game called Electropolis. I think it has it's a game that came out last year from Taiwan or Thailand, and I'm not sure. So it's a tiling game. The setting is the farm, and the classic Euro trope. But it started with an idea from a mutual friend that also is into game design. Actually, he had an idea he wanted to pitch to me. He liked the idea, but he wasn't that fond of it.
By the way, George, that's the same guy I steal ideas from.
Yeah, that's true. But I didn't steal his idea. He came to me with an idea to make a city building tiling game, because he knows I like city building games, and he knew I was trying to create one. So he came to me with the idea, and I liked it, and I fiddled with it. I tried to make some game out of it.
Do you still remember the idea? Can you be more specific?
Yeah. It was based on the Welcome To mechanic, where you have 3 decks of cards. The front side of every card had a building, and the flip side had a scoring type of display, like in point salads. And the idea was that during your turn you could choose one building to build. So you had every building had a tile also. So you chose a deck to play. You chose a building to build, so you build a building, and then you flip the card with the building, and it would show a new building and a new points.
But as I recall, I did one of your first playtests. It has nothing to do with that anymore.
No, it had nothing to do with it.
You changed it quite a bit, yeah.
And then I started thinking, okay, so it's a city building game, so it has a grid, of course, and you place the buildings in a grid, and by placing the tiles in some way, you could score points. But I was also already playing with another idea that I liked very much, but I could never fit it anywhere. And it was based on Patchwork and another game called also from Uwe Rosenberg that came out last year. I think it's called Robin of Locksley, where you move around a grid.
Yes, I played it 2-player.
Yeah, you played it. I never played it.
I've heard of it, but I haven't played it. But Patchwork I know very well.
Yeah. Patchwork also had some elements of Patchwork. I like the tension in Patchwork of the timer elements. So you move along a track, but if you move too fast, you might create holes in your Patchwork and lose points. If you move too slow, you won't be able to generate enough income to buy interesting tiles. So I like that tension.
Mm-hmm.
I like the idea of the timer in Patchwork, the abstract timer. And the Robin of Locksley game, I don't know if it's called Robin of Locksley, but it has the Robin Hood's
I'll insert
theme.
it anyway.
Yeah, so you move around the grids, and every time you move, you can score some kind of points.
But you have to set yourself up to score. I think you can only move. I played it once. You can only move if you meet the requirements of the card you're moving to.
Yeah.
Oh,
you
interesting.
meet the conditions of scoring.
That.
Yeah. But it's also based a little bit on Monopoly in the same sense that you move around the boards. But yeah, Monopoly is quite boring because you keep moving around and around. Nothing really happens.
There's no player agency.
But I thought, okay, maybe it could be interesting. Maybe other things could happen when you stop or when you move around the board in Monopoly, and you'd have some kind of bigger city in the center. I was toying with the idea for months, and then it came back when I was making the grid for the game. I was trying to make with the idea of the friend we share ideas with, or steal ideas from.
You should flash a picture of him every time you mention it.
Being angry.
So he's our muse.
Yeah. Can I ask a bit about your process and maybe even like how maybe that differs from, Jerome's? Like if you have like how do you approach an idea? How do you approach a new
Okay.
concept?
I try to so I work in Illustrator, and I am quite good in making stuff in Illustrator, so I easily reproduce stuff, and I try to make everything and test in Illustrator as best as I can.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, it's easy.
He makes beautiful stuff, and he never wants to do anything for me.
Wait, I remember he
That's
did
true.
for you the Disney characters in one of your ideas
Yes.
on your
Yes.
cards. I remember that.
That was the fastest design ever.
It worked.
Copy paste every Disney character I could find on the
Copy-paste, yeah.
internet.
So that's
so-
really cool.
Yeah, and then I try to fiddle around. I try to really emulate everything as much as I can, and then I try to test mechanics. I also in Illustrator I try to write down all the rules as much as I can, as much as needed. So I skip setup. I just try to do during your turn you can do this, this, and this, and then it's the next turn, etc. The game ends when this and this happens. And along the well, we've been designing for a couple of years, I think, and I started noticing that we talked a lot about ideas and about mechanics and how they would work, but we didn't really play test our ideas enough. We play tests once in a while, but it's really it's not enough.
Yes, every time I come with an idea to my brother, he says, "Yeah, play test it." I'm like, "No,
Yeah,
I want
just
to
test
hear
it."
what you think about the idea. I don't know. We have to play test it." I'm like,
Yeah, but
Makes
it
sense.
happened a
Just give me
lot.
feedback.
We went round and round and round with the same idea without testing it, so we couldn't make any real conclusions because we never tested it. And
Yeah.
So now with Corona, of course, it's impossible to test, or it's very
Yeah.
difficult to test. So I found an application. It's free up to a certain point, where you can do anything you can do in Illustrator, sort of.
I've
It's a
already
mock-up
showed it to
tool.
you. I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember the one you showed. What's the name of that for anyone that's
Mockups,
interested?
MOQUPS, it's called, and it has the same shortcuts as Illustrator, the same functions up to a certain point, of course. It's really easy to use. It's
And the best part about it is that you can invite people and they can move
Yeah.
stuff as well, in which
Yeah,
you
that's
can
the most-
prototype as long as you don't have
Yeah.
a deck of cards and you're just moving tiles, which is appropriate for your prototype. It
Yeah.
works.
That's awesome.
so I invited Jerome, and our mutual friend.
For the
Same
first
guy.
playtest. Yeah. Can you show us something already? Do you still have the
can-
old?
Can I just screen
I
share
think
it?
so,
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
So that's how it's looking right now. So that's my process. So you see, I got some rules here to the right, and then to the left, I have some more.
Wait, you changed
elaborate
it again?
rules. I changed. I didn't change that much.
No, it was Waffles.
So it was Waffles, but I went back to the farm. I changed the theme, so I made Waffles, and you
That,
you walk around.
that's actually a very intriguing theme, Waffles.
Why did you get rid of the waffle theme?
Because I'm gonna do a playtest on Wednesday with the same people, and
Mhm.
I want them to keep. So they're used to playing with the farm idea, so I want them to be in the same mindset. I think it's safer. I don't want to
Okay.
change too much. And there's some issues with the waffle team also, but I'm not going to go into that. But you had a waffle, and you run around the waffle with a teacup or a coffee cup, and you place strawberries and blackberries and
butter?
and cream and butter and
I should have had breakfast
mint
before
leaves.
this.
I feel like people should put in the comments which theme they prefer.
Oh,
Yes.
God. I have some other themes. I had another theme in my head where you're on safari and you run around with a jeep, and you see animals, so you place animals in the fields.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Max,
the same.
how important is theme for you, and at what point does it become important in the design process?
That's a good question. Actually, I don't think it's that important for me. I think in this game it's not that important, but I think I always start from theme in some way. Maybe not theme, but maybe it's more game type, maybe.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like you allow a theme to carry you forward to a certain point where then you also don't lock the theme. You want to keep it open to a possibility of changing it easily down the road, but at least you are utilizing the theme up to a point to get you there. And then you're open to change, which is kind of cool. I think that would be me as well, because for some reason I do need theme to carry me forward and get me excited about certain things that could happen. And as I think of different parts of the game design, it helps having a theme in the back of my mind anyway. But
exactly.
It's cool to see. Like, I mean, like you said too, it's like I'm not sure a theme is that important. Well, it sounds like you were changing themes like you change shirts. I'm just kidding.
It's also because I can easily change the theme.
It's the hallmark of an abstract game.
Yeah, and I mean, it speaks to the design, right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But
cool. Tell us a little bit more about it. It looks really interesting.
So you have a market in the center. That's this one here, and so each round it fills up with different vegetables. So I'm not
randomized.
Randomized, of course. Not
randomized.
Really.
Okay.
I'm just gonna fill it up a little bit, not too much, because it will take too much time. And it goes around in a circle. So like this. Like this, voila. And every round, players can choose up to 3 tiles from the market. They have to be adjacent. So let's say the yellow player wants to take 3 tiles. He can take this one and this one and this one because they're all adjacent to each other. And then because he took 3 tiles, he can move 3 forwards on the track around.
He has to move. Yeah.
He has to move.
Has to move. Okay.
Yes,
and then you have to take 3 every time?
No,
or up
you
to?
can take 1,
up to?
2, or 3. But I think it's a minimum of 1.
Yeah, at least 1 and up to 3. And then the placement of the tiles.
Yeah, you place them adjacent to your tractor, so you can't. And in the column or row next to your tractor, along the line of your tractor. So
that's really cool.
If I was here, I could only place it in this row,
right?
And you place them adjacent to your tractor. So I can't be doing this.
Right.
You can't do that. So you can't leave any holes between the tile you're placing and the tractor.
And you have to place all of them?
You have to place all of them. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I wanted to create the same tension of patchwork. You can move fast, but it might get you less points in the end. Or you can move slow and plant a lot of vegetables and get rewarded. Then you'll miss some bonus points along the way. Because and that's actually one of the elements where I'm struggling, because the tension isn't really there yet. I'm still missing some elements, but I don't really know what.
I remember in the first playtest that there was this kind of misunderstanding that our friend thought the game would end if he raced around the field. So he was trying to push the end of the game.
But it ends when you rock around.
Yeah, but the first playtest that wasn't decided yet, or it wasn't the rule, or
it wasn't really clear. Yeah,
and it didn't stop. So he felt like, I was trying to end the game and trying to get an advantage out of that. So that was valuable feedback.
So currently the game ends once you go once around, once you reach
go
the
around
end.
That. So you start at your barn. So an important element of the game also is the corners. So you don't really land on them, but you pass them. And when you pass a corner, you can take a fertilizer bonus. And it gives you a bonus on the structure you're building, so on the vegetables you're placing.
When you're scoring it?
Yeah. So the scoring happens at the end of the game, and then the bonus tiles give you extra scoring. But it's first come, first serve. So when you pass the fertilizer, you're the first one to be able to pick one of the bonus tiles.
I like that you made this bonus and this function thing just because the board has corners, and it's because you're working laterally and vertically and horizontally. the corners are meaningless, so you actually gave meaning to the corners because they are there.
Yeah.
It wasn't a design thing or anything. Those things are interesting to me because you only find them out when you actually make the prototype. The first time you made it and play tested it yourself, you're like, oh, what about the corners?
Yeah, I was really struggling with those corners. I remember.
I know, that's why I mentioned
the corners,
it.
and I thought that's so annoying, and I didn't want to leave them out because then your board would have a really strange structure with holes. The corners would be gone. It was ugly.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, maybe if I pass the corners, maybe something happens. I don't know. Just like in patchwork, when you pass the knots, you get more knots based on the
you get your income.
amount of knots you've already placed on
your buttons.
Board. The buttons, yeah.
Yeah, I like
knots is a little translation of the Dutch word for button.
And then the scoring of each tile, you also made changes in that.
The first playtest was really boring because it was Azul-like. You had to place the same vegetables next to each other, and every time you placed the vegetable next to the same vegetable, you would get points. It was really boring. Nothing really happened. So that was the first feedback I had from our friend. He said, okay, just make sure every vegetable has some kind of unique scoring.
Well, I remember the feedback of that first playtest was that it was in-game scoring, so everyone did their turn and you would score on your turn. And it's made the game substantially slower and not boring, but if you have to wait for someone to count a score every time, every turn, it made it slower than just taking and placing tiles.
Yeah, it slowed everything down. And it was unclear and there was no real strategy, just try to pick the same vegetables. That was the game.
Yeah.
That
was one of the other feedbacks,
Yeah.
It was, I remember, I took an aubergine, and then the next player was like, oh, he's playing aubergine, so I'm not taking that. Taking an artichoke, and then the third player was like, if everybody took their color and just maxed out on that.
Yeah. So I remember you had aubergines, I had turnips, and our friend had
pumpkins, I think.
Pumpkins, yeah. So it was super obvious.
And everybody stayed out of each other's way because it wasn't valuable to take someone else's color because you were missing out on your own color. Yeah.
The second playtest, I immediately picked up on the feedback. I gave every vegetable another scoring condition.
And it also became end scoring condition. It wasn't in game anymore.
Right. Yeah, it was end scoring. Yeah, and I also had a harvesting action where you would. So if I would have planted this in the previous turn, so the mushroom, I could also choose not to move and just harvest the mushroom and then get points for every harvested mushroom. I gave up that idea because it slowed the game down significantly for the player who went for the mushroom strategy. So that was a big issue. One thing I learned from that test is that players need to keep on moving around the track. So apart from that, I also added a mechanic where every time you passed a corner, you would get points. So for the first corner, you would get 2 points, then 4 points, 6 points, 8 points, but the points were not shared, so it's first come, first served. So the first one to pass the first corner will get 2 points, etc. So there was a racing strategy, and that actually it worked kind of well in the second playtest with another friend. Yeah. He went for that strategy, and we tried to make some structures with the different vegetables, and I think he won also. It created more tension. It was pretty close, and
it felt. But what I remember from that playtest. Our feedback was that because of the theme, I said I'm gonna play this to do you a favor, and arguably all prototypes you play all prototypes as a favor. But and at the end of the game, you asked would you play it again? I was like, yeah, I'll play it again. But before we play tested, I wasn't sure I wanted to play it at all. And that's what motivated you to change the theme, because you asked me and why didn't you want to play it to begin with? And I think it's the theme, but I don't know. So, and that's why in the simple abstract game, I think it's important to get everything right in that way.
Yeah.
And then you change it to Waffles, and now it's gone.
Um, it seems really fun actually. I would love to try it one day. I have a couple of questions though.
Yeah,
So
sure.
what did the scoring change into? You know, if I'm placing vegetables, like what is my goal? Am I trying to make any kind of shapes or matches
Yeah.
or
So you had the turnips. You had to place them diagonally next to each other, and
ah,
per diagonally placed turnip, of connected turnip, you would have 3 points per turnip, for example. Then the aubergines, you had to make
A
a
square,
square structure.
like 4 aubergines.
Um,
That was my strategy, and that's
yeah,
what I
and
was
then
trying.
I
that's
tried
cool.
to split. So I had 6 different vegetables, and I tried to make 2 groups. So one group of vegetables, so 3 vegetables would have a clear scoring condition, but the other ones would not have any scoring, but would advance or would mix up your actions. So you had the artichokes. If you picked an artichoke, you could move one extra or move one less,
Yeah,
which created interesting decisions in picking the
yeah.
combination of
But I
vegetables.
remember when you were explaining the game, like you are doing now, I was like, oh, it's like it didn't really speak to me. But after the second turn, I was like, oh, okay, yes, now I understand. If I go
Yeah,
3 steps and then I take two, oh no, then I can't take an aubergine, and I have to
yeah,
do 2 steps and with the carrot, so I can do this and that. So it became very interesting after the second turn. It
yeah.
was like, oh, I can see the strategy.
And
But
and
when you were
the
explaining it, I thought like, oh, I'm just gonna go around and
but
take
because that's because you're biased,
vegetables.
because I have a bad reputation in playtesting.
You know
Usually
what
it's
seems
crazy.
what seems really exciting to me is that to reach the center, you have to get the three, which will move you farthest. And then, like, if you want to make any kind of pattern in the near the center of the board, I think that's really really cool.
Well, it's
And
interesting you say that because I changed the aubergines to placements in the center, and you get
oh,
more points when you place in the center and less when you place them on the rims. So that's very
That's one
yeah,
subject I also want to talk to you about, and I have mentioned it to you both already. Is that Max, have the tendency to pile on stuff in your games to keep it
yeah.
interesting for yourself? Because when you playtest and then you change things, and there's a danger that you keep playtesting and keep adding things
Hmm.
because you're trying to keep yourself interested in the game. Because when you changed it after our playtest, I was like, oh no, why did you change it? Because I still want to
Yeah,
try what you made there
yeah.
again. Yeah.
But no, I didn't really change that much, I think, this time. I
Okay.
tried to keep the basics that worked during the playtests because it's the first time I playtested a game that much, actually, which is ironic in Corona times. It's absurd. But yeah, I try to keep the basics as much as possible, and yeah,
Yeah,
I
your designs go in waves as well.
yeah, but I
You
have to
test
admit,
something and
I've
then you
tried,
add
yeah.
balloons, and then suddenly you go back to where you were, and then you balloon again, and then you
In
go
an
back.
ideal
I
world, I would like to test all my different ideas, but
Yeah.
I can't.
I
Yeah,
think
but
that's
at
a
some point
good
you have to trust yourself in knowing what is good and
yeah.
what is
Yeah,
bad.
I think that ballooning effect is important, though, to be able to see how far you could take it, and then to realize that what you had
yeah.
was, as long as you realize it, I suppose. You know, what's interesting is like I have a varied group of people who come to play games. Obviously, they haven't really been able to come over, but thinking to a certain particular group of people, this game would be just perfect. Like they would actually eat it up. The theme wise, you know, the I think the vegetable planting is just a very, like you said before, it's a very you know, what's the word I'm thinking of? I want to say like worldwide popular theme that resonates with everyone in a way. They
Hmm.
understand it, you know, like, oh, I'm just planting things, so they kind of like, you
Yeah.
know, my farm. So I like that theme, and I think it would do very well in this game as what I've seen anyway today. But there's something about the waffle one that seems original. Like it
Okay.
sounds so original, and I
Well,
can see it now that I know how you play. Like just how you make your waffle tastier by adding all these ingredients. That sounds delicious in both realistically and a game I've never played before.
I'm gonna screen share with my waffle idea.
It was, but it was me. It was my criticism on the vegetable theme was that the promise of planting stuff immediately thinks about planting and growing, and there was the tie-in with the theme and the mechanics wasn't there for me. And I know you thought about a lot of themes to fix that, but for me it was, I'm just going around with the tractor and placing tiles. I'm not feeling the planting theme.
Yeah.
So that's why I changed it to Waffles.
I think with anything tile placed, it's about what the result looks like at the end. You know, like I'm so proud of my little garden, or I'm so proud of my waffle, or I think if you can get that feeling and emotion at the end, and you're like, this scored me so much, and look at it, like it looks great. That's
my problem with Azul Summer Pavilion, because you never get to fill the board enough to have that satisfaction.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a very good game, but I always have like, I want 2 or 3 more turns.
I had the same feeling with that one, actually.
Yeah.
Show us the waffles, please.
Yeah.
Okay. Just a sec.
I may have to have waffles after this.
You're gonna have to return to that theme. I'm sorry, brother.
Oh, that looks so good.
So you have the.
He makes the best prototypes. That's true.
This looks really good.
Banana. This is the whipped cream.
Oh my god.
The strawberry, and then when you pass the corner, you get a cookie. Cookie gives you points.
And what better reward?
And you move around with a coffee cup. And the original idea was I move around the coffee cup, and every time I pass the corner, I would get some more coffee, and the cup would fill up by placing little structures on it with more black area.
Oh my god, this needs a deluxe edition with all these like 3D components.
But it's an issue because in the real game, I imagine you have a bag with all the tiles like in Azul, and you grab tiles randomly from a bag. But if they have this shape, you could feel what shape it was, and you could control what's coming out of the bag, so it won't be able to randomize. So you could work with cards and have.
Well, have you seen Chai? Have you played Chai?
I heard of it, but I never played it or seen anything.
It's the tiles are just like Azul's, but then the items are just screen printed on there. So like they're just like a drawing or a painting on the tile.
But it would miss an important effect because for this theme I made up a new mechanic, and it doesn't really work with the farming, but it should work with the waffle. And it's that you could stack tiles. So I could put the cherry on the whipped cream. Oh, it's not really like this.
I think the layer went underneath.
Yeah, and then I could put some mint leaf on it on top, and you could score more points when you stack the items. Because like in real life, you could have whipped cream on your waffle, and you put some cherries on them or strawberries on the whipped cream, and you would eat it like that.
Yeah, I made the Fujigo reference about wasabi on the
the sushi roll or sushi go sushi go party.
You should make a fridge, a little fridge thing that is kind of like a dice tower, but then you press the button, and then it just randomly spews out ingredients.
That's actually not a bad idea.
I give you that idea as well.
That's a great idea.
No, I gave you that idea as well. It was like the bingo thing where you roll and the number comes out.
Yeah.
Or what do you call it? The pyramid in Camel Up. That sort of you push the cardboard and then it drops things.
Yeah. It's just like shake it around and then the stuff comes out. Yeah, that's not a bad idea actually. But that's for the publisher to decide.
Yeah, but even if you have different shapes can get stuck, and it might not be as random as you want it to be. Yeah. But those are things to think about. After the game works and the rules work, then you can start mulling over the components. Of course.
Well, and I have to echo that you are very good at making these kind of prototypes in that program because it looks so good. I mean, and I'll be, in between, and I'll say either theme would work for me. I really think the game mechanics is fun. There's just going around and trying to fill the center. I just really like that, and I would love to play it. But there's something about the waffle one that looks so good.
Maybe it could be the second
Sorry,
edition.
I put you on the spot.
It's like, don't go grocery shopping if you're hungry. Maybe I shouldn't have done this hungry either because I'm biased now.
Next time, non-food related games.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
So
thank you so much for sharing. Yeah.
What's next on your schedule, Max? What,
You
keep playtesting?
Yeah, I try to focus on different possibilities, on the synergies between the vegetables. I think is really important. So when I design, I always try to think, okay, how would it affect my actions, and how would it affect the goals players have when playing. So I'm not trying to think about fun in such a way. Just try to think, okay, how interesting would this be, or this new rule be? So I try to keep the synergies between the vegetables as interesting as possible, and the tension. I try to have the racing tension of going around the board, because a player should have the option of going faster around the boards and ending the game before anyone else could score.
There should be equal
points.
strategies.
Yeah. So I try to balance that as much as I can. So I'm really struggling now with the scoring conditions for the different vegetables and the synergies between them, and the going around the track. Also, I'm trying to balance the scoring or make it more interesting. When you take the bonus tiles, how many more points do you get when you take a tile, etc. So I got that figured out for tomorrow, and in the meantime, I'm testing other ways to take the tiles from the market, because now you have the circular markets. It's similar to
Electropolis,
of course, but
Patchwork,
but it's
more Electropolis. I felt
more so Electropolis. You have a very interesting mechanic in Electropolis. You should really check it out if you can't play it. It's okay, just read the rules. So it's also same circular markets, and it has a mechanic when if you're the first player, you can choose.
It's like you're bidding actually on. If you want to take a lot of tiles, you go last, I think.
Yeah, if you want to pick 6 tiles, it's fine, but you'll be the last to pick them. If you want to pick 2, you'll be the first to pick them. So it's that balance.
You can get really stuck in the end. If you're taking a lot of tiles, you can have a lot of pollution because the good tiles are gone, or not the ones that you need. There's not really good and bad tiles. It's just situational. It's very interesting. I like it.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming the tiles get refilled, unlike patchwork. Yeah.
Yes,
but those are all things that are flexible. Like, do you clean the board and refill, or do you move them up? There's so many ways that you can do this, and you can't test them all.
No. Yeah. But I might have a more interesting picking mechanic now that I was toying with today. It's actually the mechanic that's from what's it called? 7 Wonders Duel, where you have the pyramid structures. So you could have the same structure with the vegetables, and you can only take the vegetables on the bottom of the pyramid. You can only take them when there's no obstruction from another tile, and then work your way up like that.
There's so many drafting ways. Yeah. But that's also something I want to interject. You can start off by making a very unoriginal game with stolen mechanics, but the more you test it and the more you make it your own, you can stumble upon something original and something that's really clicks, and you only get that by working on it.
Yeah.
I think the most progress I've made is after a playtest. Even if the first playtest was so bad, but I made a lot of progress because I knew what I had to do to make it better instantly. And
Lesson
before I didn't
number
know
one.
anything. I thought, okay, we're gonna try this. Maybe it will work, or maybe it won't work. It didn't, of course. But the second
But
playtest was a lot better than the first one, and the third even better. So
yeah,
And
but
then
it's
it will crash in the
motivating.
fourth and the fifth.
yes, it's motivating also.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
And you
And
get great
regardless if
feedback.
if people think like, oh, that sounds like horrible, you get all these people like judging you and your design, but that's like the best part. Is like
Yeah.
that is how you move forward.
It's soul crushing, but it's the only way to go forwards.
On that note, I thank you for coming. And,
It was awesome.
I hope you come back here when there's a little bit of
Yeah.
evolution and you bring back the waffle theme. And maybe we can play test
Maybe-
it in mock-ups.
Yeah, maybe I'll have another team. Maybe it will be the Safari team. I don't know.
Max,
Sure.
I have an important question though.
Yeah, shoot.
How garbage was Dungeon Fumbler?
Pretty garbage. But I never
we'll
really.
move on.
I remember Jerome toying with the idea of the Dungeon Fumbler, and I really liked the theme, but I didn't really like his mechanics or his ideas around how it would play. It was still very vague, of course. I don't know how vague it is now. I haven't seen the last episode actually.
It's just,
Um,
that's why I'm shelving it. It's because I cannot, and probably it will come later. I cannot match the theme with the mechanics. It's for now. It's too dry a Euro for the feeling that I want
It's
Yeah.
true.
the players to have. And with what I'm working now, it's never gonna work. It's always gonna be cube pushing or worker placement for something that should be much more frivolous. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And I
So
knew
you
that
won't
was
be hearing
coming, Jerome. I knew that was coming when you said, we'll have a special episode. We'll have a guest. And I'm like, yep, I see what's going on here.
he's checking it.
Slowly killing Dungeon Fumbler.
Yeah. But it was wonderful to meet you, Max, and congratulations on all your work so far. And
Thank you.
yeah,
Thank
I
you
was
for
really
having me.
excited to see it and hear your process. And I think I'm learning so much through these episodes, and I'm hoping people are as well.
Yeah, me too. Thank you for having me. I had fun. So,
You're always
and
welcome.
I'm really hungry for waffles also now. So,
Yeah.
Let's eat.
Waffle time.
waffle time.